and it seems security forces in Iraq's second city were in no mood to take them on. Fighters from the A group linked to al-Qaeda seizes control of Iraq's second largest city. The US says the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant poses a threat to the entire region. Is Iraq's government doing enough to secure the country? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Hanna. It has become one of the most powerful fighting forces in the region, and it seems security forces in Iraq's second city were in no mood to take them on. Fighters from the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant, or ISIL, captured Mosul, meeting little or no resistance. They now control considerable territory in eastern Syria and western and central Iraq. It's part of a stated campaign to carve out an Islamic State straddling the border, viewing the region as one interchangeable battlefield. Iraq's Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki has asked Parliament to declare a state of emergency.
What happened in Mosul was ISIL exploiting the political situation there. This is just the latest round of fighting against ISIL, and it won't be the last. We will continue to fight against them with the help of the people of Mosul. Al-Qaeda and ISIL don't have the numbers to control the city. They don't have the power to confront the Iraqi forces.
Al-Maliki also appealed for international support to combat ISIL. The US, though, has warned the Iraqi government that it needs to do more.
So we're going to continue our important relationship in terms of providing some security and military assistance to the government of Iraq. But ultimately, there's also a responsibility on the part of the Iraqi leaders to step up to the plate here. That includes Prime Minister Maliki to do more to address the unresolved issues and better meet the needs of the Iraqi people.
Well, the UN estimates that as many as 500,000 people have been forced to leave their homes in Mosul, many heading to the semi-autonomous Kurdish region in the north. Footage posted on a social media site also appears to show Iraqi forces crossing into Iraq's northern Kurdish region. Witnesses say army forces threw away their weapons, changed their clothes, abandoned their vehicles and left the city.
When I called some of the security chiefs, I found out that a large number of them were afraid to even discuss the issue with Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki. They were afraid of telling him that there was a security collapse, because a few days before they sent him reports that were quite contradictory to what was really happening in Mosul, showing their incompetence in confronting the attack.
The Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant crossed into Syria after the 2011 uprising. It's taken over Deir az-Zor province as it battles government forces and other rebel groups for control of vast areas of northern and eastern Syria. In January, it turned its attention back to Iraq, sending fighters into Anbar province, taking over Fallujah and parts of Ramadi. The latest attacks mean it's now in control of much of Nineveh province, including Mosul, as well as parts of Kirkuk province. The fear is that the group could now extend further south, towards the capital, Baghdad. So how much of a threat do ISIL fighters pose to Iraq's security? Let's bring in our guests. Joining us from Baghdad is Alaa Makki, an Iraqi MP with the Wataniya Alliance, and in London, Shiraz Maher, a senior research fellow at the International Centre for the Study of Radicalisation. Welcome to you both. Let's begin in Baghdad with Alaa Makki. Armed activity has been ramping up throughout the year in Iraq, and some have been arguing that far from coming as a shock, the seizure of Mosul was almost inevitable. What's your view?
This event was expected, really, first of all, because we knew that the security plan and the security men and the security operations were not being done in the right way, and we are opposing all these, and we gave consultations and we gave many advices to the people, to the leaders, They didn't hear us. So we expected that. I mean, look, there is really no what we describe as military doctrine with the army people, because they are working for persons, not working for the country. And that's very obvious. And therefore, when they were ordered to do something, they refused, and they left their weapons and left their clothes and escape away. So this is the important issue that we should realize. So the other people who are gaining weapons and gaining the popularity among the public because there are a reflex against the Iraqi army by the bad behaviors with them previously. So those people who are the foreigners and others, they could get popularity among Iraqi people, especially in Nineveh. So we are hearing now that they are living well, and every offices, official offices and other, the markets are open. So this is the point. So I mean, that's not, it's surprising to you maybe in London or in, I mean, anywhere in the world, but we in Baghdad, in Iraq, it is not surprising. It's an ordinary event because there was no right way to behave with and to tackle the security problems in the right way.
Well, Shiraz Maher, we did hear earlier from the governor of Nineveh province pointing out that they had been feeding information to the central government in Baghdad, warning that such a takeover was imminent. Was the government incapable of acting, or did it simply choose not to, not being able to rely on its security forces?
Well, I think these problems highlight some serious structural issues that continue to haunt Iraq post-invasion, that the country's never really been able to come to terms with. There is barely a functioning state beyond Baghdad. In large parts of the country, as your previous guest just mentioned, in fact, people are acting and operating largely autonomously. They are acting in hoc to a number of localized interests and not pulling together as part of a national interest. So in that sense, as he says as well, the fall of Mosul was an inevitability because there is no coordinated strategy right now. Corruption is rampant within parts of the country, within parts of the government and civil administration. And so you have a civilian population that is itself quite disaffected, quite disillusioned. And so when a challenge of this nature comes, there's quite simply no one there to resist it.
Well, Alaa Makki, that particular point that we've just heard, a civilian population, hundreds of thousands are fleeing that particular area at present, but also it does appear that the armed groups have been getting some support amidst the civilians, that there has been some opposition to the Iraqi armed forces, the official armed forces. This whole question of hearts and minds is absolutely central to what is happening, both in this governorate, but in other parts of Iraq as well, is it not?
Well, I want to declare an important point to international society altogether. I'm talking from Baghdad. Look, we in Baghdad and in Iraq know very well that those armed people are not totally Daesh. There are large number of them. There are citizens. They are marginalized citizens, and they are nationalists. And the people living in the cities where the security is disturbed. So by a reflex, they somehow cooperated with the armed people, armed groups. So if we just name them as Daesh altogether, it's a wrong nomination. And we should know that many of them are Iraqi citizens, and they were not, willing to fight or to do anything. But Daesh somehow supported them, maybe giving them weapons, maybe giving them money or support, and could attract them. And that's the issue and the secret. We were telling the government not to put a chance by any means for this event to occur. We wanted, in the parliament at least, on the political efforts, we want to attract the people to the government rather to push them away from the government, because those people, the armed groups, will invest that for themselves, and that's what occurred at last.
Oh, Shiraz Maher, that whole question of exclusion, there has been criticism of the al-Maliki government that groups within the country have been excluded throughout the period he's been in power, and even in the weeks since the last most recent election. This question of exclusion from power, does that play a role in what we are seeing in places like Mosul now?
Absolutely. I think what you have is a deeply fractured and divided society, one that is divided in a number of ways, of course sectarianly divided, but divided in a number of other ways as well. Of course, coupled with huge unemployment and an increasingly, if not desperate, then hopeless population, and that's a very dangerous thing for any society. Now, the really important point here to consider, as the other guest mentions, is that whilst the operation itself may not have been entirely fueled by ISIS itself, and it would have had support from locals on the ground, so locals who are hugely disaffected, the important thing that ISIS is able to do right now in both Iraq and in parts of Syria is to act as a force multiplier. What it's able to do is to get in, to pick up on local grievances, to pick up on the anger of local populations that are disillusioned, that are feeling a need to rebel or a desire to rebel, and it's able to provide them with logistics, with support, with men, with money, with munitions, in order to facilitate them to cause this kind of disruption, which they then are in a position to capitalize on. So they're operating, in a sense, like a force multiplier, which is a strategy that actually we've seen the United States use in Afghanistan and Iraq to try and suppress insurgencies. They're now using it to their own advantage.
Well, Alaa Makki, I see you nodding in agreement with that particular point. To your view of this concept of a force multiplier using support among the civilians to create further support?
Yes, that's right. And really, we had a lot of phone talkings with our relatives and our friends in that area. I mean, in Nineveh, I phoned the president of Nineveh University, and he told me that they are now feeling comfortably living, and those fighters are not behaving in a bad way with the people. On the contrary, they are leaving them to have their normal life, which is unusual previously. So it's really dangerous, because that will be expanded, and they are growing down to reach the southern cities like Beji, Tikrit, maybe reaching the capital within